Hello everybody, welcome back to Red Tool House. Today's video is a follow-up to a video I just did recently about landlocked land in response to your all's responses, I guess. So come with me real quick. So I want to point out some reasons why you need to confirm land access before you even get serious about purchasing a piece of land. Make sure you know exactly how you can legally gain access to that land. And I'm going to use our land here as an example. So when we talked about landlocked land a couple weeks ago, I had asked, hey, if you guys would be interested in a video where we talk about easement issues that may not be that obvious. We talk, landlocked, of course, you can pretty much nail that down pretty quickly when you look at the deed and the title and all those type of things. But what about situations where it looks like you've got easy access, but it may not be the case? So I'm up here on our county road right now, spin around here. We're over here. That's the lion's share of our 100 acres. Spin around with you real quick. This small parcel right here is just a small triangle, less than 2 acres that we own as well on the other side of the county road. So I normally don't have this perspective in any of our videos because I really have no reason to be up here on the county road or the other side for that matter. So if we start here with our own property, I think this is the best example to kind of make my point. Those of you that have been with the channel since the beginning, 500 plus videos ago, may be familiar with this, but a lot of people are not. So let me show you here. If you see, here's the county road, and then there's my driveway where the side-by-side is sitting. Now, interestingly enough, about 60 years ago, that was the old county road where my side-by-side is sitting. It would go into the creek and just drive into the creek for a long time and come out further up the valley. 60 years ago, the state road, in an attempt to get creeks out of the road in West Virginia, because it's a very common thing, they cut the hillside out and put the county road up on the hill. So, some more earthworks to do there, more effort to put into it, but it got the county road out of the creek. So I'm standing here on the old county road base, and creek crossing comes up to the barn, and of course the house and everything else there. But the old farmhouse used to sit right here. And you can imagine the county road coming right past the farmhouse. There was a little footbridge. All of those things were here that would be nostalgic of an old country house situation. That's why you see my gas meter there. It's so close to the creek when the house is way up there. An old house here. So the property line actually comes right across the creek crossing. It comes off the mountain behind me here and comes right across the creek crossing and then hits the hill. So my triangle of land on the other side of the county road used to be bigger because the county road used to be here. So technically, I don't own this first stretch of my driveway, this access point. My neighbor does. His property is here to the east, and he owns all the way up to the creek crossing. So I'm actually using the old county road right-of-way, or he's giving me an easement through his property. And again, it's kind of semantics. There's a lot we'd have to go through because it was an old county road, it was moved, did they officially abandon it, blah, 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 that type of stuff. But technically, yes, he gave me easement right-of-way access to the land. Now what's interesting, the way the county road cut, where this line goes up, I actually own the front of his driveway. So we kind of own each other's driveways, which is kind of weird. Maybe one of these days we'll do a trade and swap off there. So you can imagine the situation I was in 20 years ago when I first looked at this property, laid eyes on it. It was not on the market. It was just abandoned. It was gutted. It was really a piece of work. But when I looked at it, I just assumed that, okay, this driveway access is part of the property. And that was a poor assumption to make on my point. Fortunately, it worked out for me with the neighbor, of course. But you can imagine if this neighbor said, well, no, I don't want you to use that. You can't have easement right away. I couldn't claim easement. I couldn't push. Now, the county road issue may possibly. But the simple fact, if I had to cut a driveway from where my property actually touches the new county road, it would be a bit of a task. So let me show you that real quick. So up here on the county road, I'm standing on the line of my property that goes up to that small triangle piece. So where I'm standing, if we look over my shoulder up the county road, my property is on this side of the county road up past the side-by-side and just around the turn there. I don't know if you can see that one black oak that's got a gangster lean going that way. That's about the edge, my other side, the north side edge of the property. So 100 acres really tapers down pretty small here at the county road. But check this out. So everywhere that I have actual frontage on this county road is very, very steep. So this whole frontage is extremely steep. Exposed rock, rock face, even undercuts. So if I had to create a driveway because I didn't have access and I had to stay on my property from the county road, I'd be in a really tight spot here. It'd be very, very tough to create access, or it'd cost thousands and thousands of dollars to have something engineered to get down into the valley to be able to gain access to my property. So you can see easily how mountainous or hilly terrain can really throw a wrench in some of this stuff. When you look at property on a map, say you're looking at a realtor's listing, you're just looking at the map, it's like, oh yeah, that property line comes right up against the county road, no big deal. Well, when you have about a 40 to 50 foot elevation difference that's almost vertical, that becomes a big deal. So if you're going to be looking at, there's a lot of people that have reached out to me talking about how they want to move to the mountains. They're flatlanders, or they live in the south and they want to get out of the metro area or something like that. So they think, oh, mountains will be neat because there's, you know, solitude, there's seclusion, there's all the benefits of it. And there are. I love living in the mountains, but there's things you got to look out for. So I want to give you 5 quick tips to help you confirm legitimate access to a piece of land before you get too deep into possibly purchasing it. The first tip is learn to read a topo map. Man, those things come in so handy, and every parcel in the United States, there's a topo that exists on that. If you can learn to read a topo map real easy, you can bring up that property, look at it, and get an idea of topography, get an idea of where it's really, really steep. So my next tip is along the same lines. If you can learn to read a topo map, then also take advantage of Google Earth. Now, I'm talking Google Earth, not just Google Maps. Google Earth allows you to use a 3D model where you can actually get perspective of the map and you can get a rough idea of topography. It's not as detailed as a topo map where it actually shows elevation and points, but it gives you a pretty good idea of how the land lays. So if you're looking at a county road and the land access beside it and you see that there's a huge hillside, then okay, you know, that may be something to take into consideration. So to get proficient in that, it's free service, you can use it anytime you want. And the next tip is a tip I can't stress enough, and that's lay eyes on it as soon as possible. And I know a lot of y'all are looking at land in other parts of the country, you know, hours and hours away, and it's just not convenient as it was for us just to drive around and look for land. But if you can fit it into your budget, or you can hire somebody or have a friend in that area that would lay eyes on it to give you some ideas, take some pictures, get some interesting perspectives. Because you'll sometimes find, even with real estate agents, they sometimes have a selective way of taking pictures, or they're not looking at the bigger picture when it comes to raw land. So laying eyes on that property as soon as possible is going to give you an idea of what challenges you may face. So factor that into your budget, factor that into your timeline. If you got to travel a day to do it, you may want to consider doing it. So my next tip is lay hands on a survey map as soon as possible when you're starting to get interested in a piece of property. The sooner the better. And I'll use, for example, here, this 2 acres beside us that my neighbor offered to me several years ago. I actually did a video about it. I'll link to it here. And it talks about why I passed on it. And actually, I had my other neighbor passed it on to him so he could purchase it. But one of the main reasons, well, there's a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons was there's a gas company right-of-way, or a gas company easement, right up the middle of this. In fact, it kind of goes right up, snakes, and turns around, follows the topography of the land, and it pretty much dissects that 2 acres into uselessness. You would always have to have that easement open. So when at face value, you look at it and say, well, this is stand of timber. There's really not much going on with it. This would be a neat little 2 acres to use, south facing, and it would, except for the fact that that easement cuts it up into so many pieces. So if you get that survey map and it shows those easements, then that could be a big red flag for you quickly before you get your hopes up or get too much time invested in checking out a piece of land. And my last tip is, if access involves crossing a watershed, make sure you take note of the time of year if you're looking at the property. And check flood records, floodplains, check with neighbors, those type of things. So you may come up in a time where doesn't have a lot of water in it, but like around here, you get a frog choker. I've seen it higher than where I'm standing, so I would be standing in knee-deep water if that was the case in some of the floods we've had. So you want to take that in consideration. Not only the obvious reasons of if your dwelling is going to be built on the same level, but again, just simple access. Am I going to be able to get across there, or do I have to spend $30,000 on a bridge? Well, a little quick video there. I hope this one made sense and it was relevant. I've got tons of examples just in our neighborhood of where I can show you some oddities with the easements and accesses that will make you scratch your head. But we may save those for some other videos, not keep beating the same horse over and over again. Well, appreciate everybody watching. Take care.